All right, good morning, everyone. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing this fine Tuesday morning? My name is Xander, and welcome to our very 10th edition of the Plug and Play APAC Summit. All right, as mentioned, my name is Xander. I'm a partner success manager here at Plug and Play APAC, and I'm so very excited to be all of you here in Singapore. And of course, a very warm welcome and shout out to all our friends and partners who have flown in to join us. Welcome here. All right, for those who have been supporting us at every summit, you know that I'm new to this portion. Please don't worry, Wayne is all well. You'll see him outside, just that it has been a very hectic 2 weeks for him. So if you see him later, please be gentle with him, all right? Okay, so today we have an incredible lineup for you. Lineup of a lot of different keynote panels as well as guest speakers. It has been a few exciting months of a lot of highs and lows, and of course putting together this event for you. And before I go into the agenda, as you can see on the screen here, let me just run through some very quick housekeeping items for everyone. So for Wi-Fi, of course, the very first thing, if you search for the Wi-Fi here, it will be Gallery Visitor. You just have to click on it, input your email, and you get connected. For the washroom, in case you are finding it, once you enter the exhibition hall, at the bottom, turn to your left, walk straight, you'll be able to spot the washroom. As for the color tag, name tags here, as you see on the screen, so those in blue are our corporate and government partners. Those in red are our startups with their exciting solutions and technologies waiting to pitch to you. Green are our investors and community partners. And gray are all our plug and play friendly members who can always talk to if you have any questions in mind at all. And of course, this is the venue layout, so we have the food right downstairs at the exhibition hall on the right near the entrance, and you can find your beverages, coffee and tea, just below here of the conference stairs. Okay, and these are the respective timing for the beverages, food and beverages today. So from 9 to 9:30 to 11, we have our breakfast. And then from 12 p.m. onwards, we'll be serving lunch. And at 3 p.m., we'll be having some light tea break and refreshments for you. Okay, so with that, let me just walk you through very quickly on the agenda for today. So starting off with our agenda for today, we'll have a welcome address from our managing partner, Jup, followed by some key updates and announcements from our colleague, Patricia. We will then move on into our very first fireside chat with Shayan from HSBC, moderated by Manav, looking at financial services innovation landscape in Southeast Asia. After the fireside chat, we have a panel discussing the vision for enterprise-wide adoption of GenAI by 2030, and followed by another panel exploring the effective innovation strategies for sustainable cities. We will then round up the morning session with our market access panel sharing key considerations and strategies for a company's successful global market expansion. All right, I guess I've spoken enough, so without further ado, I would like to pass on the time to our managing partner, Jup Tan. Can we please give Jup an amazing round of applause to welcome him on stage?
Thank you, Xander. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jup, and I oversee our activities here in Southeast Asia and APAC. Many of you are joining us here from overseas, so we thank you for coming by. We deliberately chose this venue so that it's a little bit smaller and more intimate. For those of you that have not been here before, the National Gallery has a lot of exhibits of Southeast Asian and Singaporean art and all that. I just looked that up to make sure I'm saying the right thing. So we're already running slightly behind time, so I'll keep my opening remarks short. Many of you are current partners of Plug and Play, potential partners of Plug and Play, friends, family, etc. We thank you for working with us because we truly believe that we are the world's largest open innovation ecosystem, open innovation platform, and there are parts to play for all stakeholders, right? Be it investors like us, accelerator programs, corporates, so on, and startups, obviously. So today you have a great amount of content, so I won't dive into too much detail. You already heard that from Xander. Just very briefly about Plug and Play, there are 3 core pillars to what we do, and they all focus around the stakeholders in the startup ecosystem. We run accelerator and other programs around the world. We work with Fortune 1000 corporations in corporate innovation and other activities. And last but not least, we are early stage investors. So we've invested in almost 2,000 startups over time. We started a long time ago in Silicon Valley, but today we have a worldwide presence in more than 50 locations, 50 cities around the world. We have a team of 500-600. Many are here in the audience today. We have teams that are visiting from the region, from our headquarters as well. So if you get a chance, please speak to one of us at some point. We've invested in many good startups over time. At this time, there are more than 30 unicorns in our portfolio. We've minted a few new ones this year as well, but we're not allowed to publicly announce them yet. So stay tuned for the company report next year. Out here in APAC, so Singapore is our regional HQ for Southeast Asia. We're currently in Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and our latest addition is Malaysia. You'll hear from some of our Malaysian partners a little bit later on. And next year, we hope to expand to Vietnam as well. We interact closely with our other offices in the Asia-Pacific region, so East Asia and Japan, China, and obviously our global offices as well. And as you can see, we run a variety of, I'll stand over here. We run a variety of different programs. So from market access programs to dedicated programs such as our Visa Accelerator or programs related to sustainability and other interesting verticals. So a little bit of something for everyone, if you will. Okay. So the next few slides, I just want to feature very briefly on some of the evolution of some of our programs and also some of our new locations. So for those of you that are partners with us in financial services, you will know that that's one of the first programs that we launched in the region. And over the last few years, as we have seen the traditional accelerator program model, I think perhaps get a little bit less exciting. You know, our corporate partners, our startups are wanting more. We are moving on to evolve to what we call FS Elevate, which is Financial Services Elevate. Essentially, there'll still be a pretty robust program, accelerator program, that works with startups, putting them together with corporates. But more and more, we are looking at customizing our engagements with the various corporations that work with us. So some might be interested on the investment side, on CVC, for example. Some are more interested in POCs, and some are more interested in, let's say, general market intelligence. So it's a constant evolution. So FS Elevate, here are some of our existing partners. Here are some of the areas that we are looking at. Sustainable cities. So sustainability is a big vertical or focus for us, but sustainability is very broad. Smart cities is another one. We are not creating a new program, but we're just marrying the words sustainable cities to talk about some of the overlapping interest areas, right? Whether it's carbon reduction, whether it's waste recycling, essentially working to build more sustainable cities for the future. Right? You're out here in Southeast Asia. We all know it's a very fragmented market. Different economies, different countries are growing at different speeds. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? A smart traffic solution in Singapore will not work in Jakarta or Kuala Lumpur, for example. For those following the traffic situation in Singapore, if you like to talk about the new ERP, which I think is ridiculous, look for me at the brakes, all right? Okay, so just quick feature on two locations. This week is also Philippines Startup Week, right? In Manila and elsewhere in the Philippines. And I'm not going to make the announcement because we will be making the announcement at Geeks on the Beach in the next few days. But we are going to launch a new initiative that's called Horizon, loosely called Horizon Philippines for now, that will focus on some of the key industries in the countries. For example, business process outsourcing, the migrant foreign worker workforce that goes out to other countries around the world. and how we can use technology, right, whether it's from local, regional, or international, to build more IP on top of these industries, right? So to future-proof them, to help accelerate the Philippines to a more knowledge-based, IP-based economy. So that's coming right up in the next few days. And then Malaysia is our latest location in Singapore. We're very happy to have partners such as Khazanah, CelcomDigi, E.co, and Sime Plantation as our founding partners. You will actually hear from a few of our Malaysian partners later, and I'll play a little video as mandated by marketing for those that know the inside joke. So I won't say too much, but essentially looking at areas such as digitalization of all industries, climate and sustainability, digital agriculture, food security, all relevant topics to a country like Malaysia and many in the region as well. So with that, I think, all right, are we cueing the video? Okay, so we'll just play a quick video, go ahead, to show you about, talk a little bit about Malaysia.
So as part of Dana Impact, we have this program which we call the Future Malaysia program, where we want to catalyze the VC ecosystem in Malaysia. The Plug and Play team, they have taken time to understand our objectives, to understand the local context, and then preparing up to the launch today, they've been agile, nimble, very dedicated.
You know, being a corporate, sometimes we are too tied down with corporate processes. So, partnering with Plug and Play give us a good platform, right, to venture into and to explore all the potential the startups can bring to us.
What needs to happen is elevation. So we have tried, certain levels of partnerships, engaging directly with startups. I think it's really important to have a credible partner, a partner that has 30 plus unicorns. Given Plug and Play's experience, you'd be able to help Malaysian corporates elevate their innovation maturity.
It's an exciting development for the ecosystem in Malaysia. With the partnership with Plug and Play, it allows us to have an eye in the ecosystem to know what are the emerging technologies and startups that would be interesting for us. Apart from that, we can also leverage on the events and the learnings, the sharing sessions that Plug and Play organizers. So that's something that's exciting that we look forward to in terms of connecting with the ecosystem beyond the corporates.
All right, thank you again for being here. Yes, I only have one look, but I promise it's a different shirt every time. It's a new shirt. So I'll just close with, I wanted to start with this, but I forgot, was trying to catch up on time. I think in 2023, you cannot come on stage and not talk about AI. So I won't talk about AI, but I'll just crack a joke, right? For those of you that are tracking the whole, what should we call it, ChatGPT, OpenAI debacle, when the news first came out, I read this comment that was pretty funny. I want to show it on stage, but I think, maybe not appropriate, right? But it said the joke goes something like, the comment went something like, turns out the first job that AI took was Sam Altman's. So I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, and with that, thank you again for being here. New partner announcements. Thank you, enjoy.
Thank you very much, Jupe. And just very quickly, before I bring our colleague on board, for all our friends and guests who have joined us at the back, please, there are some spaces in front here. Don't be shy. Promise you, we are all very friendly. So you can spread yourselves out nearer to the front here and towards the side. So that will help us a little bit. And of course, next up, I would like to invite Patricia Nordstrom, our Senior Director for Corporate Partnerships, to share with us some new and exciting updates. Patricia, please. Can we give a round of applause to welcome Patricia on stage?
Thanks, everyone, and warm welcome to all our international guests. Thank you for making your time to come here today. Now, as Xander mentioned, my name is Patricia, and I'm the Senior Director of Corporate Partnerships. I oversee business development, working with corporates like you. We also look after government entities as well. So again, try to look out for our team if you're interested in potentially working with startups, investing in startups, and we can provide some structures around that. So looking into the next slide, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what are the ambitions for corporates when doing innovation, right? It's not a cookie cutter approach. Everyone's not looking for the same outcomes. And I think that's very important for today. When we're talking about innovation, startup enablement, investments, and commercialization, we really need to see how to make it strategic for corporates like yourselves. So here on the screen, based on some interviews as well as some feedback from many corporations around the world, these are the key strategies people are focusing on. Are we looking at growing organic core business, by evolving your services and products? Are we looking to future-proof your business by understanding what's happening in the market, understanding emerging trends, and better be able to diversify your portfolio? Are we looking at completely transforming your business, right? Your M&A team doesn't have many opportunities at that kind of ticket size. Are we looking at early stage investments? Can we provide training, upskilling, and knowledge transfer for these kinds of things? And then, of course, last but not least, it's really about expanding your geographic presence as well as building leaders for tomorrow. So again, not a cookie cutter approach. Maybe some of you guys resonate with one or many of these topics. But overall, we'd be really happy to discuss in more detail what you're looking for. Now going on to the next slide, just wanted to, again, summarize what Plug and Play is. We're not just an investor. We're not just working with corporate and government. We're not just running programs. What we want to do is three things. One is to help our partners explore the ecosystem, understand how to add value and to evolve the startup ecosystem. Next is how to bring value not just to our partners, but also to products and services delivered by them and to the masses. And last is how can we effectively do culture transformation. So we think startups and having agility to look at those topics is very important. Now, what I will be doing next, and just be patient with me because I need to explain some of the new partners coming on board. So with that, just like to start the new partner announcement. Our newest partner is ELF. ELF is a high-performance Layer 1 blockchain with multi-sidechain technology designed to support Web3 development through its affordable, efficient, and modular ecosystem with high throughput, scalability, and interoperability. Now they are joining us as a new corporate partner with focus on Web3. Please welcome ELF as our newest partner. Next up, and you'll hear from Apollo later, is Apollo Tires. So Apollo Tires is an international tire manufacturer and the leading tire brand in India. The company has multiple manufacturing units in India and a unit each in the Netherlands and Hungary. The company markets its products under its two global brands, Apollo and Vredestein, and its products are available in over 100 countries through a vast network of branded exclusive multi-product outlets. Now, Apollo has joined us as a new partner to gain a line of sight into innovations related to the automotive industry. Please welcome Apollo as one of our newest partners. Next, we have Krefel Interior, and Krefel Interior is Thailand's leading interior contractor dedicated to seamlessly integrating advanced technologies into the construction of commercial spaces. They have joined us as a new partner to explore innovations related to the interior design industry. Please welcome Krefel Interior as a new partner. Next is our newest partner in Malaysia. So EDOTCO is the 6th largest tower co globally, headquartered in KL, Malaysia. They operate and manage regional portfolio of 54,000 towers across the globe, and their influence extends across 9 markets in Asia. They are joining us as a new partner under our Malaysian Accelerator program. Please welcome EDOTCO. Next is Mitsubishi Corporation. They are a global integrated business enterprise that develops and operates business together with its global network of 1,700 groups of companies. They have interests in the space of natural gas, industrial materials, chemical solutions, minerals, industrial infrastructure, automotive, and the food industry, as well as many other areas. They are joining us as a new partner under sustainability to look at maritime solutions. Please welcome Mitsubishi Corp as another new partner of ours. Next is NEOM. You'll also be hearing from NEOM later today. There's a keynote. NEOM is a vision of what the future will be at the time when the world needs innovative solutions. It will be the destination and the home for people who dream big and want to participate in building a new model for sustainable living. For those who are not aware of NEOM, do take a quick look. They're quite a unique company. They will be joining us as a new partner for our health vertical. Please welcome NEOM as a new partner. And the last but not least, so I'll just be closing off with Samyang. Samyang Chemical Group is our latest partner. They offer sustainable solutions through advanced chemical products across various industries, and they have an investment arm looking for innovation and investments into early stage startups. They will be joining us as a new partner under sustainability, and we'll be exploring investment opportunities across the board. Please welcome Samyang, our newest partner as well. Okay, and with that, I'll pass over the mic to Xander. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Patricia. And once again, a warm welcome to our new partners. We look forward to an exciting journey with you on board. With that, we'll dive into our very first Fireside chat. And I'd like to introduce to all of you guys an amazing speaker that we have today, Mr. Sharan, Chief Digital Officer at HSBC. Accompanying him on stage and also moderating this Fireside chat is Manav, our Director and Head of Financial Services and Health at Plug and Play APAC. Can all of you please join me in giving a round of applause and welcoming our speakers on the stage?
All right. Thanks, Xander. Good morning, everyone. I'm Manav, Head of Financial Services and Health at Plug and Play Asia Pacific. Just last few weeks, actually, we had the Singapore FinTech Festival, Hong Kong FinTech Week, which had more than 100,000 combined attendees who talked about FinTech. If you couldn't join that, I thought I'll just bring Shayan here to give you an insight into the same kind of talks that happened. And actually, Shayan just told me he was on 12 different panels. So anything you guys want to ask him later on of any of those panels, I think he will still remember that. Yeah, welcome, Shayan.
Yeah, thank you. I don't remember because it all was a blur. Extremely tiring, but the adrenaline is still pumping. So you've still got my attention on stage.
All right. So let me quickly introduce and give a bit of background on Shayan. So a stalwart of HSBC, Shayan has been with the bank for over 18 years, across different leadership roles across Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and the UAE. In his current role, Shayan is responsible for developing and implementing the enterprise-level digital strategy for HSBC in Southeast Asia. He continues to build on the strategic imperatives of digitizing at scale at HSBC and is an industry thought leader for core and emerging technologies. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's dive right in. I have a few questions that I have prepared. After that, we will open the floor to the public as well. Firstly, so Southeast Asia is a complex region made of so many different countries and cultures. How does one tackle initiatives in such a region? Any one country here that you're very bullish on?
Yeah, it is extremely diverse, but there are a lot of cultural nuances, similarities that can allow you to make it a great jump point to these markets. So I always use the figure 6 million people in Singapore give access to 600 million people in Southeast Asia. So the scale opportunity is tremendous. I'm not going to call out any one. I've been very privileged to work in a few of the markets in Southeast Asia. I think they all have, as Jup was saying earlier, their own value additions in different aspects. But I think when you look at Singapore particularly and the journey it's been on, it's really had the support from the central bank, policies, regulations that have allowed it to prosper as a fintech hub.
Particularly, if you think back to 2016, I think the number was about $200 million to $250 million of fintech investment at that point in time. Last year, that figure was $4.1 billion. So that gives you some sense of how Singapore has scaled. I think the other aspect is there's still a lot of opportunity further to that because it's going, I mean, let's compare that to the UK, which is about $12.5 billion, or to Silicon Valley or the US, which is over $30 billion. So Singapore's got a massive opportunity here to kind of look at the B2B space and also in some cases be a place for holdcos to set up to get access to the rest of Southeast Asia from a B2C perspective as well. So obviously I live here, I have a lot of connectivity within the network here. And this is an interesting thing, like I always find that whenever I've spent time in different markets, living or working there, that the fintech ecosystem is one of dependencies. So it's unlike any other ecosystem in any other sector that everybody is willing to support each other. There's an element of a lot of collaboration that exists within it. And typically, you'll find that there is an opportunity for a lot of synergy that can exist. And it's really just 100, 150 people. So if you know 150 people in a given market's ecosystem, you technically know the whole ecosystem, and you'll start seeing them at events, and you'll start have that multiplier effect of being able to work with those people collaboratively. So I think that's my plus point on Singapore in that regard.
Yeah. Okay, great. My next question is, what do you see as the most significant trend or development in the fintech space right now?
So we have this syndrome typically that we always focus on the next shiny new thing. And so again, alluding to Jupe's statement earlier, AI is the next shiny new thing. And then suddenly everything that you're looking at is GenAI related. I mean, AI has been around for like 15 years. It's not new, but I guess it had a tipping point with ChatGPT, and now it's become mainstream from that perspective. But I think, we've got to stop looking at technology as verticals, like AI, blockchain, and then you keep going backwards and it's like mobile, e-com, cloud, and you'll have the next shiny new thing. What we really need to focus on is the confluence of technology. And so if I were to define a CFO's journey in financial services in 2030, or a retail client's journey in 2030, and talked about product traceability, supply chain traceability, carbon footprint, and having live data fed back to the CFO for that corporation of what's happening in the store, that to me is some technology we can work towards, rather than kind of define what it should be based on the technology. So first define the experience that we want to create, then work back to technology. And you're going to find that blockchain, artificial intelligence, sustainability data platforms, and quantum computing will redefine and rewire financial services over this decade. So anything that you're doing right now, from wallets to mobile to anything that we're doing on hybrid cloud, for example, will be, in my mind, very different in 2030. Yeah. So the time to invest is now, essentially, in that space.
So very interesting statement. And the next thing we have on the segment is, people from the space who are going to speak about how Gen AI is being adopted in corporations by 2030. Yeah, okay, so great. I hope you guys didn't rehearse this, but because it's flowing very nicely into it. So my next question is how HSBC is adapting to the evolving fintech ecosystem in Southeast Asia.
Okay, not a sales pitch. So what I will talk about is we're really excited about the announcements we made at the Singapore FinTech Festival last week. It was a long journey to get to that point, but across the multiple programs, and I'm going to say this as a big shout out to MAS, I have found them to be one of the best partners to work with. And there's a reason for that. When you're working with new technology, even GenAI, what kind of consumer protection can you provide? So if tomorrow there's a hallucination or some kind of mishap that's originating out of your large language model, essentially, and that is impacting a client or impacting somebody in a negative way, how are they protected? So I think we need to think through what would be the guardrails that we need to experiment responsibly. And I think while MAS is driving this from, let's for example say Project Mindforge, I mean they're all on public sites now, so you can take a look at them. They work on first understanding what the implications are, provide you with the guardrails and the sandbox to be able to experiment in a safe way, and bring together the consortium partners. Like if I ask my competitors to come to my office and start working on a project together, it likely won't happen. But if the MAS is doing it, there's an opportunity where I think everybody will come to the table. So for these reasons, I think we focus on new tech working with regulators because we can then define the infrastructure in a responsible way. So one of those is, as I mentioned, Project Mindforge, which we announced last week as a consortium partner, and we are working towards a white paper on responsible AI, and also some public utility capabilities that we're looking to launch very soon. In addition to that, we announced Project Greenprint. So this is the MAS program for data orchestration and disclosures. So the intention is to make this global. We're a strategic partner with them to explore where sustainability data can be plugged in, easy to kind of orchestrate, easy to kind of disclose, for particularly in the SME space where they don't have the time. So you think about it, it should be integrated, right? So if you've got payments, the bulk of that information should flow organically into your platform rather than you having to manually input that. So just kind of smart ways to reorient sustainability data. And then Guardian is something we've been working on for a long time. So tokenization is key. So like I said, next shiny new thing was GenAI. I'm still not over blockchain. And I think we shouldn't be over it because it's going to solve major problems for the inefficiencies in the financial system if we all work towards doing that without getting distracted. And so whatever we're doing, so the reason I say that is, I mean, if you think about a mortgage product today, the best improvements you can bring to a mortgage product is probably what? Improve it by a few days, hire a bunch of people, maybe input something from the platform, but it's a typical multi-party, multi-layered problem that can be resolved with blockchain, very simply. But you have to give it time, energy, and thought with the right people around the table to get that done. So my advice on that space is always to let the technology go through its arc. Because for blockchain, at least, we know how it can go wrong. Anybody who hasn't been living under a rock knows what FTX is going through right now, any number of different exchanges. So if you don't take responsibility for it, or you're not doing it in the right way, you'll very clearly know where it's going to fail. So if you know that, then let's do it the right way. Why are we spending all our time on GenAI? Like, just automatically that becomes the new topic. Not saying we shouldn't have it, but let's work on it together as a confluence. So I think at the bank right now, those are the 4 areas that we're pushing. We believe that there's immense opportunity around the tokenization space. We've launched our own tokenization platform, Orion, in Luxembourg. We've got our tokenization capability for precious metals, which we've launched, called HSBC Mint, and we'll add more as time goes on. And then Vault is our custody capability with Metaco. It's a partnership that we've hoped to launch in 2024.
Got it. And I mean, I absolutely agree with you. MAS has really led the way across all regulators in the region on setting these new laws, launching licenses, basically inviting the public, the private sector to come apply for it. Of course, it's not easy to get a license or any of these regulations, getting through it. But once you do, it shows that you're truly committed.
Yep.
Yeah. So you talked a bit about customer experience. So let's talk a bit about that. How is HSBC using digital innovation to enhance overall customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, so whenever you look at innovation, we look at it in like 4 paradigms, right? So you have that which is going to be sort of incremental or sustaining. And then you're going to have that which is radical and disruptive. And it's really important to kind of have all 4 kind of operating simultaneously. So as far as I'm concerned, those 4 areas, the frontier technologies, are probably more in the disruptive and radical space. So the use cases I'm talking about in terms of, I'll give you an example of our real estate sector. So if any of you have ever experienced opening a project account for a real estate project with the URA, you'd understand that there are multiple stakeholders that are involved till you actually pay your suppliers. Because there's so many people involved, there's lawyers, there's contractors, there's supply chain arrangements that you've got working. And by the time the suppliers are paid, it takes an immense amount of time. But you just plug in a smart contract, and essentially, if those conditions are met, the payment should be executed, on or off chain in that regard, right? So we've actually just done the first experiment around that using tokenization, or not tokenization, but more workflow through tool for project accounts, working with the URA. And we're going to try to commercialize that. So that, to me, is more radical. And then we're going to try to see what else we can do in the real estate sector, going back to the mortgage question that we talked about earlier, and try to do something disruptive in that space around experimentation. We also have an Office of Applied Artificial Intelligence. So the day we started experimenting, we had about 1,500 use cases, and everybody was innovating, which is excellent. But not everyone is or should be innovating, in my regard, in my humble opinion. I think you need to give them some context to do that, so we're not duplicating efforts. And so we've got now a structure that allows us to be a little bit more careful in how we are innovating around in that space. Quantum computing also, we've got a number of experiments running on the research side, particularly around fraud and transaction monitoring. So this is a figure, correct me if I'm wrong, and you can Google this, but I was told, and I read this, and I think it's true. I think I put seven disclaimers there. Apparently, over a conventional computer, a quantum computer is 149 million times faster. That's the number. And I was like, I read that like a few times, and I was like, okay, so what does that really mean in terms of how financial services augments itself? Plug in GenAI on top of that. Think about quantum machine learning, and you suddenly can't imagine conventional banking anymore. And I think that's really the future we should be designing for, rather than what we have now. The other stuff, which is incremental and sustaining, I don't spend that much time with. There is a lot of stuff happening there, but it's not my space particularly.
So mostly on the radical side.
Correct.
Yeah. So you talked about so many initiatives, and earlier when we were talking, you mentioned you have an odd 100, 200 people team globally. And of course, you can't do all of this yourself. So what is the importance that you and your team gives to working with other partners that you collaborate with, either fintechs, like startups, or even ecosystem partners?
Yeah, so when I was talking about 100, so by the way, my job is the only job in the bank that focuses on enterprise. Okay. And it was designed as such because I think, and I'm going to say this very openly, if there are banks here, they know this, is that banks are hugely complex and hugely siloed. That's why we don't innovate as fast as everybody else, because we're just not designed for it, and we're very insular in our thinking across each of our silos. So my role as Chief Digital Officer was essentially to not be siloed by this or restricted by retail versus commercial versus products, and I kind of can leverage the entire enterprise and the external environment to bring them together to drive outcomes. The 200 people I was talking about essentially is, I'm talking about my commercial banking business.
Oh, okay.
So they don't report to me.
So it's even lesser.
Yeah. Well, it's me and there's a couple of people sitting in the room here. And my job is a job of influence because it requires an immense amount of motivation to get people excited about innovation without worrying about the bottom line. And so that's I have to be a bit of an evangelist, a bit of a rebel. And let's see how long that lasts. 18 years so far, so let's see.
Yeah, so it makes it even more important for you to work with fintech and other ecosystem partners.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling you earlier that in the bank, when we onboard a fintech, we can look at it from three paradigms, right? The first one is you onboard as a client. The second is an investee. And the third is a service partner, right? So you can have a service agreement. And whenever we onboard a client as a fintech into the bank, I always tell the relationship teams that you've got to think of this adoption mindset. Don't bank them, adopt them. Because the founders need help. They're brilliant at what they do, but they might not be able to tell you the difference between when they need a working capital line or a venture debt at 20%. And so you have to be very supportive in helping their scale, and then also introducing them to the right people within the bank, which is terrible to navigate, by the way. And this is what happens. A fintech come knocking on our door Jan 1st, and they'll still be knocking on doors like come December 31st, because there's just so many people that they can engage with. So I think it's really important for us to be a bit of a guide through a very complex, when you're a tier 1 bank, so that both sides win.
Yeah. And you mentioned this, that to get stuff done, you need to talk to the right people, not talk to a lot of people.
That's correct. I mean, and it's open-ended as to who the right people are.
Yes.
So I think the advice to fintechs is always this. I don't know if there are any fintechs in the room, but contextualize what you do. You've got to remember that we work on huge contracts with Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta, etc. And so whatever you've got has to be actually very definitive in terms of what more you're going to bring to the table or what else you're going to bring to the table, not how you're going to compete with Google Cloud, because that's a tough sell. So I think that's the contextualization part is extremely important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it gets lost.
Yeah. Got it. We might have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Are there any questions for Cheyenne? Okay. Yes.
I just want to ask, you mentioned there's a lot of problems to solve, and that in your role, probably a lot of people reaching out to you and telling you that we should look into this, we should look into this particular solution. So how do you kind of prioritize, or how do you filter the problems worth solving within your banking organization?
It's exactly what I just said like a minute ago. I just asked them to go back and say, what can you do for me, which is different from what my current service providers are. And if the response is, I don't know who your current service providers are, that tells me they haven't done their homework. Because it's very easy to know who my service providers are, because every tier 1 service provider at the end of the day. So I think understanding how to contextualize yours, and if somebody is at that stage, I'm happy to look at the deck. So I get like 60 to 70 pitch decks a week as a single resource, or maybe with just a couple of people. Like that's tough. So you kind of have to be quite hardlined on it. But at the same rate, I think I can filter down to 3 a week, which are really great use cases, which we can find the right people for. So it's not a perfect model, I'll have to say, but hoping that working with partners in the future, that becomes a little bit more elaborate as a process.
Yeah. So I think the answer is streamlining this further to be able to do it. All right, we are ending exactly on time, which is very rare. This brings us to the end of this chat. Thank you so much, Cheyenne, for your valuable insights.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for our engaged audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Over to you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Sharon and Manav, once again. And with that, let us move on to our next panel. So if you do the count today, I think you've heard this word probably close to, if not more than 10 times. Let me add one more count to it. Our next panel is going to be discussing on the very exciting topic of AI. Vision for enterprise-wide adoption of GenAI by 2030. And for this panel, please help me welcome our speakers. Kunal, Vice President and Head of Innovation at Visa Asia Pacific. Lauren, Global Head of Growth and Innovation for Swiss Re. Victoria, APAC Head of Innovation for BNY Mellon, as well as Terence, Director for Digital Health Proposition at Prudential. And of course, moderating the panel, we have Cyrus, Corporate Innovation Lead for Insurance Sector, Southeast Asia, ABIM Consulting. So with that, please help me welcome the speakers and our moderator.
Good morning, everyone. Just a pulse check. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. In the recent years, corporate innovation has paved way for financial services institutions to accelerate the use of new technologies and apply them to their businesses, with key use cases in fintech disruption, blockchain, open banking, artificial intelligence, machine learning, regulatory technology, partnerships and collaboration, and ESG. What you just heard is a summary of answers from ChatGPT. But of course, to a certain extent, but you didn't come here to listen to some answers that you could research on your own computer. What we come to here talk about is challenges in corporate innovation, namely risk aversion, organizational culture, lack of resources. Sorry, it's just another ChatGPT answer. I hope I got your attention. With us today is our esteemed panel of leaders in the corporate innovation space, a seasoned veteran in the payment space that has seen both developing and developed markets adapt new technologies, a banker who's been able to successfully navigate and bridge corporate innovation from east to west and vice versa. An innovation expert who's seen success from the more fast-moving industries like media and data down to the more pace-challenged ones like insurance. And of course, a data analytics maverick who's worked in various industries like government, healthcare, insurance, and has successfully translated how advanced analytics translate to dollars and cents, and may have been involved in cloning a sheep. With that being said, I'll let our esteemed panel introduce themselves, and while we do that, perhaps they can share with us if they're all still very excited about GenAI, same way they were excited about crypto and digital assets 2 years back. What is their expectation and apprehension in this? Maybe we'll start with the guy who cloned the sheep. Well, knows the guy who cloned the sheep. Terrence, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Iris. Good morning, everyone. I'm Terrence from Prudential. So, as what Cyrus shared earlier, I was involved in, working together with the guy who cloned Dolly the sheep. So that was my career starting point, and that was when I first had a close look at technology and how investments early upfront can help, as it progresses, and eventually help in society. So what I do today in Prudential, it's a journey for me. So I work in the government. I went to a startup, SME, all right? So it's a total switch. And then I went to a global consulting firm, and then now I'm Prudential. So a quick opinion about what I think about GenAI. All right, we are currently in what I call an AI spring or summer for GenAI. Just back last year, about 18 months ago, people are talking about AI winter. All right, right now, because of GenAI, suddenly the interest pop up. And then to reference back to crypto, blockchain, I wouldn't write that off because, technology, especially as an ecosystem play, has a lot of potential. All right, and it's when we have this confluence of technologies coming together, I think there's going to be a lot more explosive potential. So I'm going to speak a lot more later about what I see in 2030 about what GenAI can do for enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Victoria.
Hi, good morning. My name is Victoria. So I've been a banker most of my life, and I've been trying so hard to disrupt banking. And as you know, it's very difficult with all the frameworks and the policies and all the regulation that are in place. For me, all this technology, whether it be crypto, blockchain, GenAI, AI as a whole, they're like enablers, right? So what are we trying to solve? What is the problem? What is this technology enabling us to do? So for me, GenAI has pretty much infiltrated every single industry. Everybody's trying to see what they can use with that technology. But this is like blockchain, and I've developed personally blockchain myself, having been involved in a lot of industry initiatives and having done blockchain, developing it with a corporate partner as well. We're trying to find a solution to a technology sometimes. So it's like it became accessible. It's mainstream. So it's like the next big shiny thing, as Cheyenne said. So, but we have to think, and I always tell this to all the startups and all the fintechs that I've mentored, what are we trying to solve? What is the problem? Is this really the technology that has to enable this problem? Over to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Victoria. Good morning, everybody. My name's Lauren, and I've been in the Intratech insurance space for the last 8 years, and the most recent 3 years at Swiss Re, and currently is the global head of growth and innovation for a new division that we've recently started called Reinsurance Solutions, and that's where we provide enterprise software as well as data analytics services to insurers, MGAs, brokers, and so forth. I've gone through 3 different industries. This is the most recent one that are going through disruption, and I would say I agree with what everybody has said. It's really, really important to, when you see a lot of these emerging technologies come through, they sweep through, everybody wants to talk about it. I think every single one of us have been on panels where you cannot get away. Even if the topic is different, you still need to talk about, Gen AI. But look, is it here to stay? I think relative to some of the other technologies, I think this one has very, very, broad application, deep application. What I would say is that, across different industries, you're probably going to see that the roadmap on how it's applied is going to be different in terms of the breadth and the intensity and acceleration of the adoption of Gen AI. So I think that's something that's unfolding, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see. And I think my prediction is, as usual, things that are consumer related are going to be on the forefront. Industries, such as where we are, where it's highly regulated, we're going to be a lot more cautious, and we're going to observe, we're going to explore, but you probably won't see us, out there saying tomorrow we've got something going on that we're going to deploy at scale.
My turn. So I never was part of any teams that cloned any sheeps, but I started off my career in banking. Front office teller, counting cash, opening accounts, straddled banking, world of data analytics, and now payments for the last 16 years. And currently working in the Innovation group, which is a global group, but we are also sitting with the product organizations. So the biggest mandate for us is to work on, yes, future technologies, to work on new use cases, but more importantly, as many of you may know in the world of payments, if you don't have scale, you don't achieve scale, then nothing's going to work. So the niche use cases are not something that Visa, that as a company, we focus on. And to my panelists who similar sentiments in terms of Gen AI, we think it's a technology to be watched. The technology has legs, but the technology is not the use case, right? So how do we use the technology to drive value to the ecosystems, to economies? And the primary reason why we think it has value is purely because with every lockstep, you talk about evolutions or revolutions that has taken place, the digital revolution has enabled a world of data that's residing in each of our warehouses. The downside to that is that the data, that's the way it's organized, can't really be leveraged in terms of the use cases we're looking about. So a lot of investments also need to be made, and I think we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, thanks, Kunal. I think we'll stick with you, and I think it's a common sentiment even with the previous speaker. A lot of technologies have come by, and I think even earlier they mentioned, like, let's not forget about blockchain because Gen AI is the new thing right now. And I think for the first round of questions, we'll talk about how these large corporates have successfully implemented these new technologies in the recent years and have been able to scale them. I think we'll start off with you, Kunal. With Visa, again, with Gen AI being all the buzz now, which of the new technologies in the recent years, such as blockchain, AI, or even API for that matter, have been adopted at scale by Visa, and what were the factors that led to your successful implementation?
Sure, thanks. So when you think about Visa's mission, our mission is to be the best way to be paid by everyone, everywhere. So the world of payments has, by virtue, a definition of inclusivity, because we need to work with everyone that has enabled new types of payments to address their own needs as consumers, as corporates, and so on and so forth. So there are a variety of ways that Visa helps to enable that. So one is we have an accelerator program, and through the accelerator program, Plug and Play is our corporate partner in that. We throw out challenge statements for the ecosystem to help solve for, with three objectives in mind. One is, how do we work with them in venture capital, seed funding? How do we work with them on new product development ideas? And how do we jointly go to market with new capabilities and solutions? So this year, Gen AI is one of the topics. And in terms of the technology, what we're looking to do is, how do we sort of think about the technology when it comes to payments? Because again, the use cases are tremendous, the applicability is tremendous, but there are a variety of challenges that go forward. With a bank in Japan recently, we launched a new product whereby you can toggle between any source of funds on your mobile to pay for things. And that's called Olive. I don't know if you guys, we've launched it publicly with SMCC, whereby it doesn't matter as an institution whether it's a debit product or a credit product or a prepaid product. The consumer chooses based on a junction box we created at the end. The second example I can give you that we're also very passionate about, which has implications on Gen AI as a technology, but not a use case, is the whole world of embedded finance. Now, embedded finance, we all know the Uberification, where it's all about what you get as a product, what you get as a service, and not necessarily back end, because payments is boring. And it should be. It should be at the back end. But it should be seamless, it should be safe, and it should be convenient. Similarly, in the world of embedded finance, we're looking at majority of use cases, Chan talked about one of them, on deep tier supply chain financing. Now that's boring when you sort of think about it, but if you think about the construction vertical and how much paperwork there is, lack of digitization, and when you digitize the entire workflow and you think about the payment infrastructure that's there and the use cases that can be enabled, that is where the magic happens. Then you apply technology like AI. Now, AI can be used on transaction routing. We have been using AI for the last 30 years, as I'm sure many other companies, predominantly focused on fraud and risk. Most of our data products and our risk products are to ensure safety, stability, and security, and there's a great use of the technology over there. So in general, so that's why we are quite bullish about the technology and the use cases, more than hyper-personalization and marketing messages and my mother's birthday is coming up, what should I get for my mom, that sort of stuff. I think it's more about how the technology can unlock productivity gains and better experience in the B2B world.
Thanks, Kunal. I think we've honed in a lot on efficiency and how to leverage on these technologies. And I think Visa being a very global and retail brand for payments, I think there's a lot of opportunities to unlock. We'll shift gears a little bit with Victoria. Victoria, you've worked with a lot of the innovation arm and financial institutions outside of Asia with ING and BNY Mellon. Not as consumer-facing as Visa, perhaps, but what role does the Singapore region play in terms of contributing to the whole group? And how does BNYM expect to gain from this Asia-based outpost for bleeding-edge technologies such as AI, blockchain, or, if I may repeat again, GenAI? Go ahead.
Okay, so BNY Mellon is basically the bank of banks. So our clients are pretty much the banks ourselves as well. So we're disrupting each other and ourselves. Singapore, well, even without working in a bank, Singapore is really like the hottest exchange for innovation. They've been trying to really be the hub where everybody is motivated and encouraged to come to this particular side of the world. Even without looking at the technology, even during the time when we were developing blockchain, they were quick to pick up on what's emerging and quick to act on it. So it's a great location. Like Cheyenne has said, the regulators are very progressive. They're open to partnership. Like we're working with them as well in Project Guardian. And they're like really interested to listen to what you have to say. Now, in terms of GenAI or AI, I'm sure all of you are aware they have this national AI strategy that they put out as part of their Smart Nation initiative. So with that, they're encouraging AI research, AI innovation, AI development. They're also developing a great ecosystem of focusing on I think it was 11 industries, healthcare, financial, transportation, to name a few. So if you want to be serious about Asia Pacific, this is the growth area. If you want to be serious in innovating and being collaborative and having the ecosystem and partnership, Singapore is the place to be.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Again, the regulatory environment, MAS being very supportive of these programs. And I think to add to that, since this being a regional hub, the talent, very talent-rich as well, a lot of startups flying in. I'm still stalling to find a very good segue to my question for Lauren. Speaking of which, so a lot of startups look into data, and being the data and insight-rich organization that Swiss Re is, and alongside the complex nature of risk-writing business. So we went with banks, highly regulated, but again, insurance has its own level of complexities. What are the more interesting new insights that have been generated that we have now that we have access to new data sources? We spoke about IoT, geospatial insights, telematics, and of course, health data as well. What are the challenges in terms of building large language models for insight generation for such complex data sets and underwriting risk?
Yeah, so we look at, so Swiss Re covers both property and casualty insurance as well as life and health insurance. So we cover a very wide range. And quite frankly, we've been integrating AI into our enterprise software for quite some time. where the challenge, has always been because of the industry that we are in, we're regulated. The interest always is the source of the data, the accuracy, the reliability, of the data, who owns it. These are things that we are constantly, asking ourselves and asking providers, of the data to actually explain, because that then, because models don't discriminate against good or bad data. That's one of the fundamental things that we still, as human beings, have to actually look through. So I think that's one that probably is a known aspect, with regards to how exciting the proliferation of more data comes in. But if we talk about what's really interesting, one of the things that I realize we don't talk a lot about, I think there's a lot of fascination with the models themselves in terms of what they can do. But what we're finding is, as we look at some of the AI models that we start to implement, the area that we're starting to look more and more into is the ripple effect that it has on the processes within a company. Okay? How can you, as a result of using those insights, change or transform, the work that people do? How can you, remove some of the friction, not just for customers, because we tend to talk about customers a lot, but also for our employees. And so this is one that, as we go deeper and deeper, we're actually going to start to couple this and say, okay, the building of the model is extremely important. What it can do is extremely important. But equally important is, what does that do in transforming those processes, to improve the work environment and the processes for the employees, and thereby, hopefully also for the customers that we actually serve.
Very real insights there, Lauren. It's something that we're actually working on. What's not being shown out here in this forums is the long work that these organizations take to actually launch a product. Even just data collection itself could take, in an ideal state, 2 weeks or even as long as 6 months for insurance organizations, and I'm sure similar with financial institutions. And I think a lot of the focus needs to be on the implementation and execution. With that being said, speaking of insurance and the complexity that we have, and you being in the healthcare space and insurance space for over a decade, with the challenges that comes with bridging two of the more data-challenged industries, if I may, which areas can benefit the most from applications of GenAI, or maybe just pull it back a little bit, like data analytics in general or AI broadly speaking? Yep. Terrence?
Yep, coming from the two data-challenged industries, right? So what I would agree is it is very siloed. Data has always been very siloed. I think a lot has been spoken about that. But what is really crucial about being heavily regulated is about customer safety, patient safety. So there is a good reason, right? Because ultimately when, let's say, a LLM gives out an opinion or even a diagnosis in future, safety is paramount, right? Likewise, for whatever we do in insurance, safety, customers' interest is paramount. So having said that, right, what is crucial as we go forward is really to adhere to the guardrails, adhere to what LLMs are supposed to do in the interest of our customers. So let me use an example, like, a hammer, right? To me, AI is just like a hammer. It's just like any other tool, all right? We can use a hammer to solve a problem, hammer the nail, or we can use a hammer to destroy property, to hurt someone. So it's very, very important that we as implementers of AI, as users of AI, as we roll out our solutions out there, it is this fundamental thing that we need to take note of, which is customer interest, patient safety. Thank you.
Thanks, Terrence. So you mentioned about AI being just another tool that could help you augment your business. Speaking of which, a company has recently launched a $100 million fund, GenAI fund. That's a lot of money for one tool. Kunal, what is the innovation and accelerator team's outlook on GenAI, and with the previous success that you've mentioned earlier, how are you looking to replicate that success with GenAI? Or would this just be solely focused on GenAI, or would it be like adjacent to other technologies as well?
Yeah, who hasn't launched a venture fund or anything on GenAI, right, if you're a corporate? So I think the key message, and I'll answer your question, but one of the things the panelists spoke about, which absolutely resonates, that anything that aims to be disruptive or truly value additive in terms of scale will take time. And the analogy I'd like to draw is 83, the world of internet was born. 93, the first popular consumer-facing browser was born. Year after that, Amazon was born. Amazon took about another 10 years to become profitable, and look at them now. So look at the trajectory in terms of how things take time. So the first step is how do we get close to the technology and the adjacencies, and hence we launched the fund, is to be very close to companies that are on the cutting edge of the technology. How are they thinking about the technology? How they think about data architecture and the adjacencies that come through it. We've also launched a global consulting practice as our clients, who are predominantly B2B, are thinking about how should we even think about this space? How should we think about our internal structures? How should we think about governance models? We're also part of the AI Verify board here with MAS in Singapore, and that's absolutely amazing that the regulator is also coming up in the forefront in terms of thinking about governance right there. So yes, to stay close, to invest in, and to participate in as and where relevant when it comes to the world of payments.
Sounds good. Just another tool that you're using to have a holistic approach in corporate innovation. You have your implementation team within your organization. You have venture capital to get a good reach of who the players are out there and understanding what the technology is available. And I think we spoke a lot about, I think this has been a very good panel in terms of like identifying the practicalities and applicability of technology. Nobody has actually said, oh, we do GenAI at length yet, which is a good thing, I guess. With that being said, speaking of like real use cases for Victoria, for BNY Mellon, what are the successful use cases and implementation that you've seen in the organization using AI?
Okay, before I answer your question,
Please
I
go
just
ahead.
want to resonate what everybody has said. It's very important that when you're developing something, whether it be AI or any technology, it has to benefit the people inside your company first. How do you expect your people to sell something if they don't even experience it? So it's a great comment you made earlier. So that's really an important piece of information. And what you said as well on the use cases. There has to be like a use case for a technology to come in. It can't be the technology first and the use case later. Otherwise, there's a lot of failures and a lot of things that you will be facing in terms of roadblocks. And the last thing that my co-panelist has said here about being responsible, having the framework, having the governance is really important. I mean, I work for a bank. It can sometimes be too much, but it does give you the guardrails to make sure that when you're developing something, especially in the AI space and the Gen AI space, you are doing it responsibly. Because you know what? AI is not ethical by itself. It doesn't have, it has the bias. It's prone to errors and it's prone to a lot of biases. So just to answer your question, so for BNY Mellon, we are very serious about AI. We actually established an AI hub, not only to accelerate the development and the production of like AI solution, but also to make sure that the guardrails and the governance and whichever lines of businesses are developing will do it according to proper processes, proper way of doing it, like within the square, so to speak. We have not so much on Gen AI because we are still testing and we're doing a lot of proof of concept on Gen AI. Because if you look at the use case of Gen AI, it's mostly insights, mostly summarization, mostly content, mostly image generator. So, we're looking at that and we're testing it and seeing how we can take it to the next level besides what you're seeing in right now. But in AI per se, what we're doing is like making sure our data is correct. Because if you look at AI is data plus code. So if your data is messed up, pretty much everything is messed up. Whatever you're feeding your algorithm is not going to be really good. So in what we're doing is looking at the data first, making sure it's correct, and then doing our use case. So we have a couple of live use cases at the moment, mostly in the predictive analytics side of things. We're using it as a bank, and our clients are using it as well.
Thanks, Victoria. To wrap up, 2 final questions. Lauren, jumping in quickly, what's Swiss Re's outlook for GenAI? You spoke a lot about the practicality and use of new technologies. Also for GenAI. Go ahead.
I mean, really quickly. So our point of view is it has deep impact and deep applicability across our business. Very fundamental areas in the space of underwriting, in the space of claims, in the space of portfolio management. But precisely because of that, where we are right now is that we are exploring GenAI. We are testing in very closed, tightly controlled environment. So we start to understand it, and then we'll take it actually from there in terms of which use cases we'll start with.
Thanks. And maybe an encompassing theme so far that we have is that GenAI is just another tool, but we're still grounded on the practicality and the business applicability, revenue, people utilization of this new technology. And last but certainly not the least, our data expert here. What are the key fundamentals for an organization that needs to prepare to be able to ingest AI to begin with, or even GenAI for that matter? Go ahead.
Definitely, as what my co-panelist has mentioned, data quality, data availability, completeness, fundamental stuff. But with GenAI, there's also a new dimension, which is you can create synthetic data that can mimic your actual customer profiles. That can also be done without disclosing such information out there. So I just want to share about what we are doing in Prudential. So currently I drive GenAI projects there. So we are actually making significant progress. For example, in the area of customer service. So in one of our solutions, we have already piloted and tested in a real-world setting where we reduce customers' waiting time from 4 minutes to less than 30 seconds. And that itself has a lot more leg to grow because of, it depends on how fast our stack can take. So there's one very interesting use case. Now, the other aspects that, that we need to think about is, let's say 2030, right? That's the theme that we are looking at. So I see AI right now is still as a toddler. In 2030, all right, I would imagine people to have AI cobots, agents, all right? And these will be the agents that will be talking to each other to do scheduling, making appointments, to find out more information for each other. So our lives individually will be transformed, not to mention each corporate functions within the organization. So these are the things that we will be looking at, more automation. But at the end of it all, right, just to sum it up, it is not about, it's going to be an automated society, there's not going to be much human interactions. In fact, I think we'll get more human interactions. In fact, I think the kind of quality of work that we're producing, maybe in a clinic, in terms of making the diagnosis, in terms of making decisions, are going to be much sharper. So this is the kind of future I think all of us can look towards too, if we put our efforts at the right place with the proper guardrails. Thank you.
Thanks, Terence. And just to wrap it up, I think key message and what I find particularly interesting being in the space for the past 7 years, there's a lot more talk about the businesses now rather than the technology. 7 years ago, people will come up stage, talk about blockchain, how fantastic it is, and they'll shove that technology into banking. Then later on, it's like nothing happens. I think what we've heard today is for startups and venture capitals who are evaluating startups, it is important to evaluate whether the startups understand enough about the banking and the financial services industry, or how intricate the insurance operations is for them to be able to work together with them. Because effectively, for them to scale, they would have to adhere by the rules that are set by banking and insurance industry. And with that being said, that's a nice wrap-up, isn't it? Thank you very much for Kunal, Lauren, Victoria, and Terence, and thank you everyone for spending time and listening to us.
Yes, with that, thank you. Please give a round of applause to the speakers. And thank you very much to our speakers for joining us for this topic. All right, moving on very quickly to our next topic. Now that we've all about financial services and AI covered, for the next panel, we will be attempting to go a little bit green. Shifting gears from financial services, we have put together a panel to discuss the effective innovation strategies for sustainable cities transforming ideas into impact. And for this panel, please join me in welcoming Brian Lim, Head of Data Impact from Khazanah, and Sunam Sarkar, President and Chief Business Officer for Apollo Tyres. And moderating the panel, we have John Ang, who looks after corporate and government partnerships for Plug and Play APAC. John, over to you.
Thank you, Xander. All right, looks like we have a full house. I like the look of this. Hi everyone. A very good morning to all of you, and welcome to this discussion today. I'm John, and I drive business development for the region, and it is an honor to serve as your moderator, especially on such an important topic for our region. For today, we'll explore the crucial role of innovation in shaping sustainable cities, or put simply, the two themes of sustainability and smart cities. Our panelists represent companies deeply committed to both environmental stewardship and financial success, serving as prime examples of the strong outcomes that come from harnessing innovation and investments to advance these goals. I'm confident they'll be able to offer practical takeaways for everyone here towards a more sustainable and innovative future. So without further ado, I'll let each panelist introduce themselves. Sunam, why don't you kick it off? There we go.
Thanks, John. Good to be here. Good morning, everybody. You've already seen my name. It's Sunam Sarkar. I've been with Apollo Tyres for about 25 years. And one of my key responsibilities currently happens to be leading the drive for sustainability, which is of prime importance, not just to us as a company, but also the industry and the world at large.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Brian from Khazanah National. So Khazanah is the sovereign fund of Malaysia, and I wear two hats, actually. Firstly, I head the Impact Fund initiative, which in Malaysia we call it Dana Impact. I'll talk a little bit more about the fund later, but basically it's an initiative for investing not just for commercial returns, but also to create and strengthen social resilience as well as catalyze economic growth for the country. Other than that, I also head our healthcare sector coverage.
All right, thank you both. So I guess with that, I just want to get this started. I actually have this in two segments. I do have some general questions I want to give to both panelists, and then later some that are a bit more nuanced, a bit more contextualized. But let's just start with the first. So any of you can take the questions as you like, but what I'm going to start off with, what is your company's strategy for sustainable cities innovation, and how does it contribute to your goals, including, say, profitability or economic development? Brian Asuna?
Okay, maybe I'll start. I think the notion of sustainability is actually a very broad, very wide one. I know the context here that we're trying to talk about is with regards to smart cities, applying technology and innovation to make cities more sustainable. End of the day, cities, we want them to develop. The government, the people, the companies want economic development. But at the same time, we need to think about the social aspect, the economic aspect, as well as also the environmental aspect. Just a couple of data, just to throw it out there, statistics out there. 50% of humanity lives in urbans, live in the city, of which, so that's about 3.5 billion of people, but actually still close to 1 billion of them lives in slums in the cities, right? And this 50% will go up to 60% by 2030 and up to 90% in the next few decades. So how do we make this a more sustainable way? For Khazanah National, the key thing, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, a lot more during this panel, is that every city is different, right? Singapore is very different from Jakarta, from Manila, and Bangkok, and KL. So each city will have its own challenges. And the thing about smart cities and sustainable cities is that you have to work with a very broad spectrum of stakeholders to really create the impact, to really effect change. Whilst many startups, if you're in the consumer retail space, it's very clear it's a 2C business. If you're in the fintech space, it's a 2B business, a 2B to C. But in the sustainable cities, it's probably, if you want to create the most impact, it's 2G, right? It's to governments. And it's probably 2G to C or it's 2G to B to C. So I'd say that this is something that you have to think about, right, for the startups, for the venture, I'm sure the venture guys knows as well. For Khazanah, we are looking at this because of the specificity of Kuala Lumpur and also of Malaysia. I think we are slightly behind in terms of adopting technology in how to make our cities more sustainable. But what we do a lot is actually on the other aspects. So we actually started a company called Think City back in 2008, 2009. So Think City is mandated to basically work with policymakers to think of how to actually come up with policies and to come up with plans to catalyze development for cities in a more sustainable way that actually touches city planning, touches how certain urban areas are curated, and to work with multiple stakeholders, the private sectors, the academia, and communities as well. So, of course, part of this, it sounds like a lot of buzzword, but part of this also, they do accelerator challenges. Quite recently, a few months ago, they did a creative KL urban challenge where, for example, two of the more interesting startups, right, that are in the final list, one of them, it's, again, this is, I think, not very new innovation. It's basically about smart mobilities within the cities, whether it's shared bikes, shared scooters, but once you have a platform, can you use this platform to empower and digitalize MSMEs, right? The restaurants around the city. Can you use that to create a map to promote and develop tourism, right, within the cities? That's one. The other interesting startup is, for example, a company called Entomal, which is in flies, actually. So they use black soldier flies to treat waste, right? So they repurpose containers, shipping containers, and you can place them strategically, tactically in certain clusters in the city and use it to treat food waste, right? So I think I'll stop here and pass it to Sunam. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I guess I'd use two words to describe what we do for sustainable cities, and those two words are product and process. Product, obviously, our product is tires, as the name of the company says, and therefore the use of more sustainable materials in the tires, the application of those tires into some of the modern electric vehicles which are coming out, because that obviously contributes to sustainability. The use, or rather moving into process, the use of renewable energies in the manufacturing process, altering the manufacturing process to minimize our carbon footprint. And I think even more importantly, one could look at, or I would say we are exploring the applicability of technology into how our products are distributed across the landscape, the logistics of more efficient distribution, minimizing of waste, and the efficient use of transport services.
Thank you both. So I guess a follow-up question to that is, I'm sure there are a lot of challenges that come with implementing that. How do you think about some of these challenges and how you, really execute on overcoming some of these issues?
Yeah, so it's interesting because our challenges are also fairly sharply demarcated on the basis of the kind of markets that we work in. Our primary markets are Europe and India. In Europe, the biggest challenge we face is the very fast evolving regulatory environment. There are more and more new regulations coming in this space. Unfortunately, our industry is one where product development has its own lead time and development cycles. You can imagine, as a safety product, we have to go through all of the testing requirements for putting tires out there on the roads. So we have to balance the fast-changing regulatory requirements with our own testing and material exploration kind of developments. In India, the challenges are different, but also I would say that India, as a classical developing country, tends to leapfrog technologies, given that we do not have the kind of infrastructure which many developed countries have, it's an opportunity for India to kind of go straight into the next gen infrastructure solutions, which are obviously far more sustainable. So we have to balance these as when we as a company work in these markets.
I see. I guess for Brian's a bit different because you are, well, I wouldn't say the regulator, but work very closely with the government. So I guess for Khazanah, how would you guys solve some of these challenges?
I think solving is a big word. Yeah, the unique thing about the sovereign fund is that we're sort of in the middle of a triangle, which is the government, the public sector, the private sector, because we own companies, we are investors in companies, and as well as the people, because as a sovereign fund, every single citizen claim that they're a shareholder, right? So yeah, I'd say the key challenge here really is how do we align the interests and the objectives of multiple stakeholders, right? From the government to private sectors who may be more commercially driven, and of course the community themselves, right? Which is what they need on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, that sums it up really.
I mean, it's definitely a challenge, definitely a big challenge. So actually with that, maybe I'll just shift gears a bit and have some questions a bit more specific for our panelists here. Specifically for Brian, I do want to ask, the transition to sustainable energy sources has been met with resistance in some sectors. I'm curious, how does Khazanah address opposition to renewable energy initiatives, and what steps do you believe are crucial for a successful energy transition?
So one of Khazanah's main portfolio companies is our national utility company, Tenaga Nasional. And because of historical reasons, of course, the primary energy source for the country is still a mix of natural gas and coal. And of course, we know that IPPs, the power plants, is financed a lot by financial investors, right? Whether it's equity or debt. Well, so how do we transition in a just manner, right? If you take a step back, the developed countries are imposing or introducing a lot of these best practices for developing countries, but I think there needs to be time that is allowed for developing countries to transition. There needs to be financing support as well. So I think there are some multilateral bodies that's come up with initiatives on that, on just transition. And this is on the national level, but this actually trickles down to the community level as well, because the energy transition actually affects jobs significantly. It affects the labor market. So we have to think about how do we align or upskill or reskill power plant workers to reskill them to become green workers, right? To have jobs which are for the future. So yes, Khazanah is a big believer that there needs to be some patience and there needs to be a just transition that takes into account multiple stakeholders, people and countries at different stages.
Okay, one last question before I pass it back to Sunam, but also related to what you're mentioning, sustainability, just thinking about the general good of Malaysians. There's been a very active role that the Malaysian government has been taking in terms of putting a priority on food security. I understand that the team had an initiative this year, the KIC. Maybe you can elaborate more on that and how it's really benefited in terms of pushing your goals and your objectives.
Sure, thanks. So taking a step back, the Impact Fund initiative that I'm leading, it's different from how other institutional investors deploy capital, in a sense that typical institutional investors, you deploy by asset class, right? Whether it's public markets, funds, direct investments. But for us, we try to identify a problem statement, and then we try to deploy capital in the best way to address that problem statement. So we started by doing a survey, a nationwide survey, where we went around across the country, interviewed 3,000 over smallholder farmers, and understand what is their pain points. And one of the top 3 pain points that they raised was climate change, the impact of climate change on food productivity and on crops. So we then launched this, held this accelerator program. We call this the Khazanah Impact Innovation Challenge, KIIC. Plug and Play, our partner, helped us with that. Thank you very much. And the theme of that challenge really was tackling the impact of climate on food production, right, or on food security issues for the country. So it's the first time we've done this in, I think, 3 years now, and it was actually very heartening, very encouraging that we have startups that looked at, for example, the more, I'd say, tried and tested solutions like having a marketplace to improve the supply chain of food crops and food products, to really novel ideas like applying or using nanotechnology to apply fertilizer and pesticide into trees in a much more effective way and a much more environmentally sustainable way. And there were also startups that basically came up with, I can't remember, some sort of material science that can accelerate photosynthesis in plants to improve the productivity of that. And again, it reduces the use of pesticide as well. So that's a little bit about our Impact Innovation Challenge.
Sounds very cool. Yeah. So maybe I'll pass it to Sunam now. I know you touched on some of these areas just now, but I guess in a more sort of focused way, how does Apollo really balance market demands with sustainability goals in the automotive industry? And how does open innovation contribute to this?
So I guess, again, there are two aspects to talk about over here. One is the company's own belief in wanting to be a leader in the sustainability journey. And the other one is the external influences that come. We spoke earlier about regulations, or even from some of our larger customers, because the OE automotive manufacturers obviously would want to have a greater drive towards sustainability. So I like what Shayan said earlier in the context of innovation, that get people excited about sustainability without looking at the bottom line. That's easier said than done, of course, because we are all corporate citizens. We have a responsibility to the bottom line as well. But I think as long as people see the bigger picture, or as in companies we often say, working for a greater good, which sustainability fortunately has now gotten to be seen by people at large, we are able to drive some of those initiatives. We are able to implement some of the processes and policies that we would like to do. I think we've also now started seeing the benefits, not just in terms of doing something more sustainable, but also seeing that it contributes to the bottom line, whether it's in the form of more business, because we are seen as a differentiated business that produces more sustainable products, or even in terms of reduction of our operating costs by the use of, for example, renewable energy sources in place of the traditional carbon derivatives. So it's a combination of both, and I think we'll have to just keep balancing it out as we go forward.
So actually on that note, I did want to ask as well, where you did talk about different markets and the different regulations that they have. So specifically for India, I know Apollo Tyres has big operations there. How does Apollo Tyres think about addressing some of the concerns in India where sustainability efforts can be seen as hindering business development?
I guess the real critical concern in countries like India, developing countries, is the question of affordability. And again, Brian had mentioned earlier about the imposition of certain standards onto developing countries, which actually adds cost. I think the biggest difference that we can feel or we can experience is in the use of technology, in the use of new initiatives, new technologies that offset this cost disadvantage, that helps us to, so to speak, fund the sustainability journey. And that's really where we are focused on, and that's why we are working with organizations like yourself to see what's available in the startup space, what kind of technologies are now being worked upon, which would help us deliver on our sustainability goals without breaking the bank.
Okay. So I know this is a little bit off script, but I kind of want to end off with this last question here, where, just going back to Sunam's point about really just getting people excited to do sustainability or innovation sometimes. I guess just being in the field itself for both of you, what keeps you going to just drive innovation, drive sustainability? It can be because you're really passionate about it, maybe you really like the team. I'm not sure what it is, but I'd love to hear from both of you. Brian?
Great. I think just like what I just shared about the KIC, when I see new ideas, innovation, new technology from startups, that's really encouraging, right? New ideas that can potentially change the world bit by bit, right? Maybe you just start by changing, if we come back to our topic today about sustainable cities, a certain area first, right? A certain part of a city, and then a larger part of the city, and then you replicate that across the country and then across the region. The idea of helping a company with an innovative idea scale and grow, I think that's what keeps me going, right? And if I could just leave this challenge on the table, if there are VCs and startups, in the room. Coming back to the topic here about innovative cities and smart cities, I think very often when we talk about smart cities, it's about solutions that help increase productivity. I'm not sure whether there's been a lot of time or resources or effort spent on, can we use technology and innovation to look at how we can preserve culture, preserve heritage? That's something for us to think about.
They always think about. Sunam?
Thanks. I think, John, it's really going back to what you said when you were asking the question. The excitement of innovation, it's new, it's shiny, right? So obviously everyone wants to get their hands on it, everyone wants to experience it. And I think the closed looping starts getting done when you see the benefits of that flowing back either into the bottom line or into that's a great new example you gave, preservation of culture, because these are the kinds of things which then become satisfying, both on the bottom line and as humans, because we are contributing to something where we see the results coming back.
Right. Thank you so much. And I guess with that, that wraps up our panel. And if everyone could just give a big round of applause for both our panelists here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, once again, thank you very much to Brian, Sunam, and John. Okay, with our final panel for this first half of our day, we'll be discussing and focusing on a crucial topic, navigating the market expansion journey. And as you can see with us here today, we have Sophia, the Executive Director for Startup and Switch at Enterprise Singapore, and of course our moderator, Mr. Akito Tanaka, Chief Business News Correspondent for Nikkei Asia. Can you please join me in welcoming them and giving them a round of applause for our final panel for this half of the day.
Thank you very much, Plug and Play, for inviting us on stage, and thank you everyone for joining this session. My name is Akito Tanaka, and I am a Chief Business News Correspondent for Nikkei Asia, and I'm also a senior staff writer for Nikkei. Now, Nikkei is a news organization headquartered in Tokyo, and Nikkei Asia is the English flagship publication. We cover a lot about tech and startups, so please check it out if you haven't, and I'm based in Singapore. And we have Sophia on stage. Sophia, could you introduce yourself to the panel briefly?
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm the Executive Director for Startup Development and Switch, which is Singapore Week of Innovation and Tech from Enterprise Singapore. Enterprise Singapore is a government agency under the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We look into supporting growth of enterprises, local enterprises, and more importantly, we are also the lead agency to nurture the startup ecosystem.
Great, thank you. And the topic of this session is scaling success, navigating the market expansion journey. And when you look at market expansion journey, especially for startups in Singapore, it's have to be a global expansion. Could you tell us why global expansion is important for, especially for local startups, and what are the importance for a startup besides Singapore as well?
I think for us, in a certain sense, you look into it, some of the startup comes to us, when are you ready to internationalize or go global? So our answer to them is start with a born global mindset. Because if your market is just Singapore, it is a fantastic place to launch a business. It's a fantastic market to actually try out a solution. But the fact of the matter is we are a 5 million population market size. So if I look into from the lens of the investor, what makes a startup attractive? The growth potential, your market reach. So we always tell our Singapore-based startup, please start with a go global mindset, because you are able to tap on a diverse market, leverage on a big, wide, broader pool of talents, and also, work in a varied regulatory landscape. And more often than so, we see founders with that kind of mindset also possesses attributes of, adaptability and resilience. And this actually makes them more attractive to an investor who is looking at a long-term sustained growth.
Thank you. And when you advise local startups to look at global market, do you mean global as in global including, US and
Of
Japan
course.
and
Why
Europe?
not?
Or should they start more from regional approach? What do you
It
think?
depends. Like in, for instance, some healthcare, the first take they go is actually conquer US market. I think that's a lot. And if you are in a fintech or a platform business, yes, some of them do go regional as a focus because of some of the cultural similarities. And we see startups in the edtech space, consumer space, actually, yes, they do go regional, but actually we do not limit where they set their sights on, because it really depends on the products and the services that they want to garner, and where is the track record they want that can bring them the fastest success.
All right, thank you. And when these startups look for a global market, obviously there are challenges. This could be talents or funding or, I don't know, connections, or from your point of view, what do you think is the biggest challenge, and how can they overcome these challenges to go global as a startup?
I call them CPR. CPR means first, connections. I don't know how many on the floor are startup founders. Want to show your raise of hands? A handful. How many times were you, ignored, actually ghosted on LinkedIn, or you get a non-response? So that connections, to me, the right connection, someone points you to somewhere, and actually you spend your time talking to the person which actually has nothing to do with you or can't offer that great support. It's like, in a maze trying to get a way out. And that time wasted, actually, it can be missed opportunity to the relevant people, connections, be it mentorship, be it financer or partners. So getting that right connections is actually, one of the big challenge I see. The second one, which is people. You may have a great idea, a great product, but if you do not have any warm body or great team to execute it is actually fatal. It will not work. So there are many times that we see, that this founder having an idea but not able to pull in the right people to execute, to implement, to run. Actually, that actually didn't help the startup to bring their idea to the biggest potential. And then coupled with, when you are a new startup, how do you attract people? What credibility do you have to say, come join me, place your bet on me? And you are fighting a talent war against big corporates, who dangle a very, bigger compensation package. Is sometimes like, David fighting against Goliath situation. And then regulatory barriers. And again, in a big corporate, you can outsource this. You hire advisors, or you have a big legal team to just help you navigate through all these regulatory requirements. But as a startup, this is time consuming. And typically also take away resources that would better used in doing innovations in the company. And then you multiply this by 10 times bigger when you go to different markets because typically the regulations differ. And that is painful. So to me, it's a bit, I term it as a CPR. And then how do we work on that, That's where we have partners like Plug and Play. We have Enterprise Singapore that walks the journey with you, that, we connect you to the partners, the right partners. We provide support through our trade association, ACE. We link you up with the right connections, and maybe we can also share more as we go on later on the GIA program, the Global Innovation Alliance program. But there's a gamut of support that we give startup because we know that they are limited in resources and they need to run fast.
All right, cool. Let's go a bit deeper in that, what you guys can provide to a startup community. Say I was a startup founder based in Singapore. I have an international team, and I want to expand to the U.S., but I don't have I don't have right connections. I don't have the right talent. I may be having a hard time with funding because right now everybody's having a hard time with funding. What could you do to help me?
So, like I said, our mantra is Born Global, and we are here to walk the journey with you. And therefore, one of our key program is actually the Global Innovation Alliance, where we started in 2017, noting these problems actually exist for startup, and no one actually put in a holistic suite of solution to support these startup. And what we do is actually we connect Singapore with key partners in key innovation nodes around the world to run acceleration program for Singapore-based startup looking especially first time in entering a market. And today we have about 21 nodes around the world. Plug and Play is one of our partners in Jakarta, Manila, and San Francisco. And what this acceleration program provides, first, number one, basic knowledge about in-market information. You need not go Google or, search around. They actually brief you about in-market rules. Second, they also connect you with the right partners so that you don't go around searching for it. And we have got good success. I think in Bangkok, one of our startup that joined the Plug and Play program, Kenobi, which is an edtech startup, actually got connected to the university through Plug and Play. And with that, they can actually trial that solution, trade solution. And in Manila, another of our company actually focusing on AI actually got connected to the industrial players in Philippines to test case their solutions for workplace safety and asset optimization. So that right connections is actually solved when there is someone to hold your hand to link you to the right person. And what they also offer is also access to funding opportunities, and I'm very sure among the midst of us, the vast network that Plug and Play has with the investors. So connecting to the investors, also they are given a dedicated mentor to actually guide you through on what is your go-to-market strategy, how should you then plan your development of your startup. And I believe that these are very useful and powerful resources to help, overcome the steep learning curve and also get out of the valley of death for many of the startup founders.
Right, thank you. And I think another factor that we have to look into, especially discussing about this topic, is that other startups from the region coming into Singapore to expand to other regions in Southeast Asia. So Singapore being a startup hub, we all know that Singapore is a startup hub. First of all, how do you see, what is the position of Singapore as a startup hub compared from cities like Jakarta or Manila or Bangkok? How do you think Singapore is doing in that perspective?
I would say that, innovation being a very important piece, all the other cities are actually looking into it seriously. They are also growing their own brand of what is their startup hub. For us, the journey took many years back. I think we started quite about a decade ago. And today we have quite a vibrant startup ecosystem. We have about 4,500 tech startups today operating in Singapore. supported by 220 accelerators and incubators. We have about 400 VCs that are placed in Singapore. And we also have actually, as a government, invested in a lot of world-class research institute to support the development of startups. So you may also ask then, so why is it then important to come here? Because then you are plugged in the ecosystem where you get that right support. So Enterprise Singapore, as a lead agency for startup development, we don't do this alone. We actually work very closely with both private and public agency or organization to band together to give the resources and the additional boost to startup. So we run under our Startup SG program. We actually run different vertical suite of programs to connect startups to partners. We run Deal Fridays to connect startups to investors where they can pitch on their ideas. We look into facilitative work passes such that founders with great ideas can quickly come into Singapore to kickstart that business. We work with our sister agency like JTC to provide plug-and-play infrastructure for startup founders to kickstart their business. So it's a gamut of support that we provide startup. And this draws startup in. And one of the other key fuel that we see is today Singapore is still the gateway of financing for startup. We just did a study with Deal Street Asia. Despite the funding winter, yes, deal volume has gone down, but within the first 9 months, actually, Singapore accounted for about 64% of all the deal volume, concluding about 410 deals, with a total valuation of about $4 billion, US $4 billion. So I think all these add up together, draws people in as a magnet to, say, okay, I use Singapore as a base and then expand into the region.
Okay, so you're saying that, again, say if I were a startup founder based in Tokyo, and I wanted to come into Southeast Asian market, come to Singapore first, and then connect with Enterprise Singapore. And what can you do for me as a Tokyo startup?
Actually, under the suite of as a founder, you are able to tap on, first and foremost, we are the Google for startup. So if you want startup network, that's where you find the list of partners that, credibly that you can connect to. We work also very closely with our trade association, ACE, to point you out to the right founders and say, Akito, you are looking for a space. Oh, I can't afford the nice buildings in the city. And actually, we work, like I said, we work with our sister agency, JTC, that runs Launchpad, which are actually catered for startups. So if any one of you have been into One North, slightly west of Singapore, that's where the National University of Singapore is, and also a lot of the research institutes like A-Star is situated. We actually offer very affordable units for startup to actually try out their business. So you're in the hub together with the likes of your Grab, the Razer, and the Apples.
Okay. Affordable units in Singapore sounds really
appealing.
Oh, well.
And then maybe you don't have a work visa. Oh, Sophia, do I need to go to take a very application for a visa? Actually, no. We actually run this work visa called Entrepass, where we allow startup founders without a company yet, but with innovative technology to come into Singapore, try out and look into the market for 1 year on a work permit to do so. And there's no stress to it. It's quite easy, facilitative. There is no hard hurdles that you have to overcome. So what we are trying to encourage is, yes, to put an environment that is conducive, that's easy for you, because the last you want to do, honestly, as a startup, is to talk to the government.
Right, thank you. One of the interesting things that has happened from the beginning of this year, which I observe as a tech reporter, is that I feel like I see more and more sort of Western, in a sense, European or American early stage startups in events in Singapore. And my guess is that they are all looking for funding because it is a funding winner and it is difficult to get funding elsewhere. And they are probably looking at new opportunities, outside their sort of traditional funding networks. So I mean, I'm seeing university startups from like Harvard and Stanford, early stage, coming to Singapore in these kind of events, and I haven't seen them in like 2-3 years back, but now they're all over. Do you observe the trend, and what do you think is the reason for this?
Yes, similarly, like recently we did Slingshot, which is a global competition for startups. We had record numbers of application for that on in-person physical event. It was like we had like 4,000, almost 4,700 applications from 150 countries. And when we just concluded our marquee event for startups, Switch, we saw 15,000 visitors with 30 global partners bring their startups to Singapore. And then we also asked, okay, why? And as we speak to different startups, the reasons like what you have stated, funding is one. There is still money here. It's whether the investors wants to open their pockets, the dry powder is still here. And what we are also seeing is that the money is flowing towards the early stage startup. So that's a good sign for founders trying to start new. I was also in UK in June. And a lot of the UK founders were also telling me they're starting to look into Singapore as a market, not because of Singapore itself, but the potential of Southeast Asia, which is today is the fourth largest economy, and more than 50% of their population is under 30s, and that gives that that the propensity to adopt innovation, embrace digitalization, and that the rising middle class income, it is attractive for them. So prior to, one of them was sharing to me, prior to Brexit, or their first thought when I need to go somewhere, it is EU, but today they're very open to say, hey, actually, my first stop can be in Asia, and I want to come to Southeast Asia and in Singapore. So that's a positive sign for us as well.
Great, and then I guess this means more sort of quality opportunities for local VCs.
Yep, definitely.
And I suppose more competition for local startups, but which is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Would you want to comment on that?
I guess we have never put a nationality on startup because innovation transcends boundaries, and what we have always supported is Singapore-based startup. What can you do in Singapore? Today, if to tap on a plug-and-play program, we are not looking at whether you are a Singapore startup, but we are looking whether you are a Singapore-based startup to tap into our programs. And I think that is the beauty of the system, where the interaction today, when I look into a typical founder and the nationality, is amazing. I can have a local Singaporean as the CTO, the CEO comes from Latin America. And, that diversity, that sort of today, we take it for granted, but it is a fabric that, pulls everyone together and makes us different and unique from other startup ecosystem.
Brilliant, thank you. We still have time, but I'm sure everybody's kind of getting hungry.
Yes, we're standing in between
I'll wrap
lunch.
up here. Do you have any closing comments or?
No, if you are investors, this is a good place to hunt. If you are a startup, welcome to Singapore, and we look forward to working closer with you. And my last thank is to Plug and Play, who have done a wonderful job in supporting our mission to help our startup go global.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sophia and Akito. Please give another round of applause to our speakers for our final panel today. Okay, that wraps up our first half of the day. And as we have multiple programs still being arranged for you in the afternoon, a jam-packed agenda, we will be still starting our Sustainable City segment at 12:30 p.m. The lunch is served all the way at the end of the conference hall. Feel free to grab it if you'd like to, but I would suggest that once you grab your lunch, please make your way back here. As you can see, seats are very, very limited. So grab your lunch, have a seat here, and join us for our sustainability segments. We'll see you in 12:30.